FBI is calling it an act of terror. In Boulder, Colorado, at least 8 people injured in an attack on a peaceful gathering in support of the Israeli hostages being held in Gaza. The images emerging are disturbing. Smoke seen rising at the scene. And this comes after the FBI says a man used makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. Witnesses described a horrifying scene.
From my point of view, all of a sudden I felt the heat, like it was a Molotov cocktail equivalent, a gas bomb in a glass jar thrown. I saw it, a big flame as high as a tree, and all I saw was someone on fire.
The suspect is under arrest. Law enforcement have identified him as 45-year-old Mohammed Solomon. CNN's Whitney Wild is at the scene in Boulder. She's joining us right now. Whitney, first and foremost, what are we learning about the victims this morning?
Well, what we know is that horrifyingly, one of them was also a Holocaust survivor, as you had mentioned earlier. They range in age, Kate, from 52 to 88 years old. What we know right now is very little about the extent of their injuries, but the little we do know, according to police, is that 2 people were airlifted to Denver area hospitals. 1 victim was very seriously injured. This was a horrifying attack, Kate, as you described. This man holding what were basically spray bottles full of what looked like incendiary material and then throwing that onto the crowd. And when he initiated that attack, Kate, these are not people who run away from their neighbors. They run to them to try to help. This is a community that will need to lean on one another as they move forward. Here's more on that from the Boulder Police Chief.
Boulder is not immune to tragedy, sadly, and I know a lot of people are scared right now. A lot of people are upset and questioning how this happened and why. All I know is Boulder has recovered before from acts of violence, and we will again recover. I urge the community in this time to come together. Now is not the time to be divisive, and we will continue to ensure community safety along with all of our partners.
Kate, that help, that sense of community will be more important than ever as they try to move forward after this tragedy. Kate?
And what more are we learning about the suspect right now?
Well, some of these details are coming to light. Our law enforcement sources are telling CNN's John Miller that he had applied for asylum in the United States in 2005. The White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller tweeted that he was here illegally, saying that he had overstayed a tourist visa. Reeve reached out to ICE to try to find out more information on that. Kate, at the moment, he is in custody in Boulder. He was booked just before midnight last night. He's booked on multiple charges, including 1 count of explosive incendiary devices used during a felony. Again, much more to learn here, and we expect that more information will come forward at his first hearing at 1:30 this afternoon local time. Kate.
All right, Whitney, thank you very much. John.
All right, with us now are CNN senior law enforcement analyst Andrew McCabe and the aforementioned John Miller, CNN chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst. John, what else are you hearing from your sources right now?
Well, they're digging into the background of this individual, particularly looking at how he got here, when he got here, how he stayed here. But what you gather from careful viewing of the videos taken by people at the scene is, and this is going to be a large factor about charging decisions and motive, is he's yelling "Free Palestine" according to police, but our review of the tape is also, he says twice, he yells, "We have to end Zionists." So that goes directly to motive. The chief called it's a targeted attack of hate. The FBI director called it an act of terrorism. And the fact that we see him at the scene, remaining on the scene, he didn't attempt to flee. Nobody seems to be holding him back. Now, bear in mind, he's holding 2 different bottles of liquid with red rags coming out of them that could be other incendiary devices, but he remained on the scene. He did not resist when police took him down and handcuffed him. Very much like what we saw at the Jewish Museum in Washington just several days ago in an attack involving a gunman, whereas We're seeing what appears to be people answering the call from multiple platforms from foreign terrorist organizations, calling on people to act alone on U.S. soil against public events with rudimentary tools. And we're seeing them remain on the scene apparently to underscore that message and that motive.
So, Andrew McCabe, how do you go about an investigation like this? What are the key parts of it? And to that point that John Miller was just bringing up, these people being urged by organizations around the world to act on U.S. soil, how do you fight that?
Yeah, John. So what the investigators are doing right now is very similar work to the things we discussed in the aftermath of the shooting here in D.C. at the Jewish Museum. They, as we know, executed a search warrant at this person's residence last night, and that's an effort to collect all of the devices and things he might have in his house that indicate who he's been in contact with, what he's been looking at on the internet, what he's been writing, things that he's been searching in his online search history. It uncovers both his motive and it gives investigators a view into his network of contacts, because what they're looking for right now is exactly what you just suggested, to see if anyone helped him plan this event, helped him train for it, helped him acquire the materials that he needed to pull it off, or was he simply inspired by events he saw and was, harboring grievances about things that he saw online and that were happening overseas in Gaza and other places. This is going to help investigators understand whether or not he had co-conspirators who might also have culpability in this attack, or if he simply acted alone, lone offender, driven by grievance and, kind of went down this path towards extremism by himself. So a lot of very important questions for them to uncover in the next few days and hours, really. And we know that they're well on their way to doing that with that search warrant.
And John, we use the term lone actor. In your experience, and you both have, unfortunately, a lot of experience, fortunately for us because we get to lean on your expertise, unfortunately because these things have happened before. When we talk about someone acting alone, how alone? I mean, completely alone, no contact with anyone else, or how often do you start to see some tentacle spreading?
Anything is in the range of possibility, including that a handler from a foreign terrorist organization or someone else directed him, told him what to do and how to do it. But what we're seeing pretty consistently is the opposite of that, which is people are going online, they are taking in the propaganda, they are considering the calls to violence, and they are going to public events, the Jewish Museum attack. They are picking specific targets. There's a person who is believed to be mentally unstable with a history of drug addiction who jumped over the fence with Molotov cocktails, set the Pennsylvania governor's house on fire after Passover dinner. So we're seeing these repeated incidents of individuals who are working with low-cost firearms, edged weapons, Molotov cocktails, low-tech, not putting together a complicated IED, high impact in that these rudimentary attacks garner a lot of attention.
And the targets, Andy, soft targets. You're talking about a mixer in Washington, D.C. You're talking about effectively a peace march in Boulder with elderly marchers, including potentially a Holocaust survivor there. If you were still at the FBI, what would your outreach be to Jewish organizations around the country engaged in, honestly, everyday life?
John, this is the dilemma that's confronted the Jewish community for years, and it is getting markedly worse. The ADL clocked over 9,000 anti-Semitic incidents last year, which was up 5% from 2023. The Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism tells us that 68% of the religious motivated hate crimes in this country, 68% are committed against Jewish people, while at the same time Jewish people comprise only 2.5% of the population. No one has done more than the Jewish community to try to protect their institutions, their community centers, their synagogues, than the Jewish community with organizations like the Secured Communities Network that does an amazing job in providing security assessments to Jewish communities around the country and helping them build up the sort of systems they need to stay safe. But the facts are what they are. targeting of the Jewish community has increased markedly, particularly in the wake of the October 7th attack on Israel. And there is no sign that this is going to stop. So they need to kind of continue this very expensive, very labor-intensive effort to secure their institutions, but they also need to think about these soft targets. Anytime there is a public gathering of Jewish people to do anything, to commemorate a Jewish holiday, to speak out about the hostages currently held in Gaza, as we saw yesterday, the public knowledge of that event turns it into a target, and they need to think very carefully about how they're going to secure those events.
A necessary but tragic commentary on the situation. Andrew McCabe, John Miller, thanks to both of you.